Hey you guys, welcome back to Free Fruit Podcast. Wow, it's been a while and a lot of things have happened for the past 1 month. Basically, if you know, you know, I moved to Korea by myself and it's been quite difficult to make a podcast where I sort of share my insights and give advice to other people when I'm just trying to live. I'm just trying to get through each and every day settling here. I have more responsibilities, being vulnerable about that, but also standing firm with what I'm doing and what I'm thinking on another platform has been quite challenging. So, yeah, I needed some time to recharge, but thank you all for waiting. And you know what? I think it's a great time to cover this topic. The seed of the day is how to find yourself. There's all sorts of ways to put it. How to discover more about yourself, how to know what you want, and really just building yourself. First of all, let's ask ourselves, why do I have to know about myself? And my answer to that is we have a lot of things that we consider as our core value. Some people would say it's health, moral values, religion, so many things, right? I think psychologically what drives us, no matter what kind of background we have or no matter how we grew up, I think all of us are driven by self-esteem. Some people confuse that with confidence or pride and ego, but I'm just going to talk a lot about this for this whole episode. But self-esteem is so important. You need to have a full understanding of what self-esteem is. So let me just give you some examples. If you can trust someone, does that mean you know a lot about that person or no? Probably means that you know a lot about that person. You have a data of this person's behavior, what they've been doing. So based on that, you have trust, right? I think self-esteem is all about that. You have your own sense of who you are. So no matter what anybody tells you, that doesn't really affect you. So it's kind of like time zero. No matter which number you put in, it's always zero, right? The outcome is always zero. It's like that. No matter which input you give or the society gives or other people give, you have this firm trust about yourself. So to really break this into little pieces, I would say self-esteem is sort of built on trust and confidence, right? And trust and confidence, where does that come from? I think that comes from heavy knowledge. You have a lot of knowledge about that thing. Think about any CEOs doing presentations or doing some sort of conference. They look so confident. Why? Because they know what they're doing. They probably have the most knowledge about what they're putting out, right? I think that is needed for humans as well. You have to know so many things about yourself, like who you are, in order to have trust and confidence. And I think that leads to self-esteem. So to me, it's a seed is a knowledge about you. That seed will grow a plant, which is called trust or confidence, and that will bloom a flower, which is self-esteem. That's just the way I think about it. So I'm just going to give you a few tips I have learned and something that's been such a good practice for me to know more about myself and just grow my self-esteem. So number one is to start vintage shopping. I know this sounds a little bit odd, especially for some of you who are not into fashion or who have never really done vintage shopping or who would rather just buy new clothes. But let me tell you, I feel like vintage shopping is such a good way to know what you like, what you're appealed to. Because I don't think it really matters if you're into fashion or not. We consume so many things visually. So even with visual taste, we have our own standards, especially with something like fast fashion. The thing is, it's so heavily driven by trend. So anything you've seen in 2023, you will not see that again in 2026. Right now, we have the Y2K or the new 90s trend going on. But that's basically reinterpreted as what we want today, right? What I really like about vintage shopping is that it's timeless. You know, anything you see in fast fashion, I'm not somebody who's against it, but sometimes you need to take a break from that. We care so much about what's the best seller and what do people want these days, what's something that looks pretty to other people, to the point that everyone is dressed the same. Again, I'm not trying to glorify anything about Europe or Paris. I think I mentioned Paris quite a few times, but one of the things I was shocked when I went there was how each and every person had individuality in terms of their style. Obviously, they probably have something that's on trend, but I just look at street fashion and I can't tell what's trending there because everyone has different style, and I could sort of see what kind of life they went through. Like, they each have their own story through their fashion. I'm not trying to talk down about Korea, but you know, Korea is very, very trend-driven society because it's such a small country with so many people, so many celebrities. Sometimes it's so easy to get tricked into thinking, oh, this is the ideal standard. Oh, this is how we're supposed to look like. If you go to somewhere like Seongsu or Hongdae where there's a lot of people and a lot of fast fashion brands and merch shop, literally so many people are dressed in the same way. There's just a little bit of variations, and overall it's literally the same, and I was like, what are we chasing? You know? Feels like we're all chasing this one style to the point that it feels like a competition. But yeah, I feel like there's definitely the pressure that comes from everyone chasing the same ideal and constantly trying to outdo one another. Vintage shopping is timeless. There's something from the 80s, 90s, Y2K, or 2010s. And there's so many different brands you've never heard of. But yeah, there's such a low chance you'll have that with fast fashion brands. So vintage shopping, give it a try. Trust me, it does something. And moving on to my second tip is to consume less recommendations or trend alerts. This is kind of funny how it's coming from somebody who has a social media platform and sometimes does pay promotion. Algorithms keep telling you what you should like. There's definitely a good size to it, right? Because some people share a dessert they really liked and they want to share the good things. That's also what I do. But sometimes it's just overly consumed. When you're on your phone constantly and you're like, what should I do tomorrow? And you search up where to go, you search up what to wear, the input is always from somebody else. And we think it's efficient to do that because it takes time to think, right? You have such a few chance to really sit down and take time to think about, what do I actually want to do? But you have to know that sometimes you don't actually like something. You just saw it enough times that you wanted to try it. But if that was not on trend, do you think you would have liked it? That's something that you kind of always have to ask yourself. Just always give yourself room to discover things naturally instead of constantly being told what's worth liking. And just smoothly integrating that to my third example, I would say expose yourself to new things, new environments, new people, new hobbies, and you will start to discover the version of you that you've never met before. That's literally me right now. I've said this a lot of times, but it's my first time ever living alone apart from my parents. So I feel certain emotion I've never felt before. And I'm like, what is this feeling? And how do I deal with it? And sometimes I get asked how do you find your style? How do you know what you want to wear? Not just that, but how do you have your own vibes? How do you create that? You just gotta expose yourself to a lot of things. You need to try out new hobbies. If you're somebody who have never worked out, start working out. If you're somebody who have never danced before, maybe go to a dance workshop for a day. Do things for fun. The process of adapting that and settling and analyzing what's around you, that builds who you are. That's also considered as a part of your data. When you're asked a certain question or when you have something you want to do, you start to become more courageous. Oh, this is such a good thing, but I just got reminded of it. You should make your own bucket list. And writing that is also a practice of knowing what you're appealed to, what kind of lifestyle you're picturing. I have passed that stage of making a bucket list because I have made that ever since I was very, very young. Like, I'm somebody who enjoys doing that. These days, what I'm trying to do is I have a list of my reds and greens. If you have ever heard this song called Red Red by Cordis, it's such a funny example. The lyrics, it sounds a little bit goofy, but basically the members composed that song. They gathered all the things they are not a big fan of. The reds are basically something they want to avoid in their life. Then they also talk about greens. Yeah, I'm like looking at the lyrics right now. They're like 팔랑귀, 눈치 살피기, 도가니 사리기, that's red. But 울타리 넘어가는 거, that's green. So you can sort of picture what kind of lifestyle they want to portray and what they consider very important in their lives. Back to what I was saying, I have my own red and green list, but it's not something that's very ordinary, like lying is red and being kind to others is green. No, not that. When I go to a certain town, and if I really like the vibe of that town, I think to myself, what am I appealed to about this town? Like, is it the people? Is it the stores? Is it the nature? And then based on that, I write down that thing. So yeah, that's something I've been doing, but I also recommend this as well. You can basically find out about what you like, what you don't like, and what kind of lifestyle you want to live. And then my next tip is to stop categorizing yourself. We have this weird practice of trying to categorize ourselves for some reason. We started from MBTI, and then next we have 애견녀, 테토녀, that thing. Now, in general, globally, we have this thing called aesthetic or 추구미. So people have this aesthetic or this persona they're pursuing. And I don't know why, but there's been this weird obsession with labeling things. It's like, I'm an INFJ 테토녀 who has like this aesthetic. No, you're you. Well, I feel like labeling yourself is a helpful way to explore what styles or vibes you're naturally drawn to. But I'm gonna have to say there's no need to lock yourself into one label. People are multidimensional and we're flexible. Let's not try to fit neatly into a single aesthetic, be bound to a certain things. Wrap your head around what kind of person you want to be and wonder if that's really something you want or if it's just a short phase. Just try that out. And if you don't like it, then you don't like it. If you like it, then you stick with that. Just overall, summarizing this whole topic, I think we should all make getting to know ourselves an actual goal. Be intentional about discovering who you are. When you're faced with a situation where you have to talk about yourself, sometimes it becomes a little bit exciting with that mindset. I'm talking about job interview as a specific example because it's something I've been working on these days. But some people see interviews as constantly having to like prove themselves. Sometimes it's easy to complain or wonder, did they like me? Why do I have to prove myself? But when you consider knowing yourself as your primary goal, you also start having this lens of seeing this as an opportunity to learn more about who you are and what kind of career goal you have. So many things in life is all about perspective. I also learned about this when I was reading the book about resilience. The book was talking about how people who succeed after going through so many challenges, it's not that those people have a successful life because they've been through so many challenges. It's actually more about how they treated those challenges. So yeah, the fruit of the day is make getting to know yourself an actual goal because everything is about perspective. I hope you guys can pull out a lot of things from this episode. I shared a few things that were actually helpful to me, so I hope this is practical to you as well. And as always, if you have your own practice of developing self-trust, confidence, always feel free to share it in the comments so everybody else can see it as well. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and I'll see you guys in the next episode. Bye!